Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. My name is John Jensen, and I am a leadership trainer at LifeLabs Learning. And I want to welcome you to Culture Club. And this April, we're exploring the topic of productivity and prioritization. We are going to be giving people just a minute to log in and to find their way into this session. And as they're doing that, I would love to have people go to the chat. And I want you to answer this question. Think back over the last 7 days. What has been one of the best uses of your time? Doesn't have to be work related. No, it could be work related, could be non-work related. When I think about this for myself, I got the chance on Saturday to spend a few hours with a friend who has a very busy life. And with my busy life, we don't often get the chance to do it. So what for you has been one of the best uses of your time in the last week? Put your answer into chat. Right. Good morning, folks. Doing some cooking, Samantha. That sounds great. Gardening while the baby napped. A gala rest, some gardening, the daily walk. I'm loving these answers that are coming in. The decluttering and spring cleaning. I'm still in the middle of mine. We're going to be coming back to that concept later on. Doing laundry while the family was all out. I love all these doing things while someone else is not going to interrupt us. The to-do list day by day as a great use of your time. I appreciate you sharing all of those answers with me. It's interesting. I always love to start our productivity and prioritization sessions with that question. And I notice how many times the things that people bring up, a lot of them are about our lives outside of work. And it's interesting because with this particular topic, productivity and prioritization, we're trying to, and the goal of today's session is how can we do more with less? And importantly, how can we make the lives that we live at work as good a use of our time and energy so that we have space in our lives for that gardening, for those naps, for that rest, for those time with loved ones, right? Now, with this particular topic, I have been working at LifeLabs Learning for over 4.5 years. Before joining LifeLabs, my background was in interpersonal communications, and I managed teams both in the United States and abroad. I've always been a really hard worker, but I've not always been an efficient worker. For many years, I've struggled with focus and concentration and undiagnosed ADHD. And the tools from this workshop, in fact, the very tools that I'm going to be sharing in our time together, have been transformational for me. And they've been transformational for the leaders, the managers, the individual contributors that I have taught this workshop to and coached and consulted around these issues. And I love the chance that we get today to do a mini version of this workshop. And in fact, giving you a sort of preview of what that is. And I'm hoping that you're going to leave today's events with some tools that you're excited to share with your own teams, with tools that you can use for yourselves. And today's session is part of Culture Club. Let me go back there. We love Culture Club. We love being a part of this amazing community of people ops professionals, from CEO all the way down to individual contributors. We're welcoming you here. A lot of you had already done this in chat, but I would love you to do it again. I want you to go to chat and to just enter, where are you phoning in from today? Let's engage in the chat. Let's see, where are people located? All right, we've got Manchester, we've got Albany, we've got Columbia, we've got Western Mass, we've got Dallas, we've got Baltimore, we've got Charlotte, we've got Austin, we've got New York. I'm in New York today. Michigan, Georgetown, East Hampton, London. Great to have you here. Florida, and more from London. I love our folks across the pond. Pennsylvania, El Paso. Love having you all in our session today. I want you to use the chat because one of the reasons why Culture Clubs exists is to create community with human resource and people professionals around the globe as a chance for you to connect and to learn and to support each other in the work, the very important work that you're doing. And in at LifeLabs, for those of you who are familiar with this will be a little bit of a review. For people that are new to LifeLabs, we have had the remarkable privilege over our history to work with some incredible organizations around the world and to deliver tools and workshops that help to transform the work lives of people in those organizations. And we're also constantly trying to learn from the places that we partner with, so that our 60, our 120-minute, our 90 and 120-minute workshops are informed by both science-backed principles and concepts and actual tools that you can use in the workplace. I want to go back to the chat one more time. Enter a little emoji if you or your organization have ever had a LifeLabs workshop before. Let's see. Just give your favorite emoji into the chat. Let's see who has taken one of our workshops before. All right, Samantha, Alyssa, hey, Helena. All right, Marissa, Erica, Mackenzie, Erica, Corey. Good to have all these folks that have experimented with this. In today's session, you're going to, if you haven't had a chance to take a LifeLabs workshop, get a little preview of a 60-minute version of this really important workshop for us, because at LifeLabs, we don't want to make people's lives at work harder. We're always trying to find the smallest changes that can make the biggest impact for you and your teams. And we're looking for what we call tipping point skills. And productivity and time management is one of the most important of these tipping point skills. What we mean by that is when individuals get good at being able to balance priorities in their own time, it helps tip them into other areas of success. And with the time that we're going to be spending today, one of the advantages that we have at LifeLabs is we get the chance to kind of do the drone camera view, the satellite camera view of what goes on inside organizations, for profit, not for profit, in every imaginable industry around the world. And we can see patterns. And those patterns are really interesting ways of thinking about the challenges that you and your teams face. Now, there are 4 of these challenges. One of them, if you've had a LifeLabs workshop, one of the other things that I think I'm a little prejudiced because I work for LifeLabs, but one of the delights of a LifeLabs workshop is encountering words that you've never heard in English before. One of them is chronemics, right? I don't know if you've heard this word. I swear it actually exists. Chronemics is the measurement of time, right? And when we're thinking about chronemics, it shows up in 2 ways. When I'm taking on a task, when I'm delegating or assigning a task, am I aware of how much time it will take to complete it? And also, time awareness is this: when I'm engaged in an activity, or even or especially in a meeting, am I aware of the passage of time? If you don't often think of this as being a major challenge, consider this. That estimation, that amount of time that we're spending, can really drive other challenges, including the next one. Prioritization is the topic of today's workshop, and it is about value. It is about the dollars and cents, the economic revenue that our companies and organizations are dealing with. But it's also the value, and especially for people, professionals, of how we are investing in the growth and development of individuals. How do we balance out competing demands about what's important? That third challenge is about organization. In our teams, in our collaborations, in our cross-functional work, are things being completed or are they falling through the cracks? How do people know, especially in dispersed workplace environments, exactly what's completed, where their sources of truth are? Or are things being missed or skipped, or conversations being repeated? And then the final challenge is sort of represented by our little kitten on the screen right now, right? We have so many amazing tools to be able to complete work in the year 2026, but yet we can feel like this cat sometimes, bouncing back and forth between these bitter demands, and at the same time, really maybe not being as productive as we would like to be. So I want you to think about these for yourself. Go to the chat. Which of these show up as the biggest challenges, either for you or for your teams? Enter that into chat. Where do you see the biggest challenge? All right, a lot of focus coming up. Some chronemics are showing up, a good, even with our new word, right? The focus is a lot, right? This notion of 3 and 4, both the organization and the focus for quite a few folks, right? This idea of being able to do the value, in some cases, all but one. Kendra, I hear you. Sometimes the challenges feel like they are nonstop and they're coming from everywhere. Now, what we're going to do during this time together is focus specifically on these 4 areas. And for each of these areas, provide you tools. Some of these tools you may have had exposure to before. One of the things I love about our workshops is we try to emphasize that common sense is not always common practice, right? We might know about these things. We may have used them in the past. And sometimes this workshop will say, okay, that tool really works. Let's continue to dive into it. But in today's time together, we're also going to be exploring tools that you haven't used or tools in new ways. And at the end of our time together, I'm going to ask you to prioritize one of the tools that we've covered and to take it back to your team and to see how it works. Now, we're going to start off with chronemics. And one of the things we love to do in LifeLabs is sometimes have a not so scientific experiments, right? And one of those is about our inner time clock, right? We all have, it's like a muscle that can be improved or it can weaken. So this is going to be a little game that we're going to play in our session today. We want to see how good your internal time clock is. So in a moment, I'm going to begin a timer. And I want you to close your eyes and not look at that timer. Don't cheat. No peeking, no counting. As we do this, what I want you to do is when you think a minute has passed, open your eyes and look at the clock. If it's not quite a minute, just note how many seconds are on the clock for the first time you opened your eyes, and then close them a second time if you can make the minute. All right. So everybody get ready. Close those eyes. I'm going to get this video, this. All right. Second, going back. All right, everyone, go to chat. What was the time on the timer when you first opened your eyes? Let's see how y'all did. All right. Let's see. We've got folks coming in at 106. I hope you didn't fall asleep. 56, that's really close. 40, 42. 59, Laura, that's amazing. All right. 50. Also, Gail, right at 59. Did anybody get DJ also? We got a lot of the. Oh, Debbie, you just pushed the 59 club out of first place, right? Debbie made it right at a minute. You're feeling a small sense of accomplishment. 22. It's all right. It's Tani. I understand as well how that can be, right? Now, what is our takeaway from this? Oh, Patricia's also in the 1 minute club. All right. Okay. Oh, Katie has also made it there. All right. We've got quite a few people that made it right at that 1 minute section. Patricia also. Okay. All right. And totally, Alyssa, I completely believe you that you didn't cheat at all. Right. So now, what is the takeaway from this? Well, to get away from the fact that that wasn't an actual experiment, there are ways, especially ways that leaders inside organization can cultivate a greater sense of time awareness, beginning with themselves and then extending it out to their teams. And one of the most important of these is to practice something that we call time integrity. If you've taken a LifeLabs workshop before, you may have heard us talk about the concept of blur words, words that mean different things to different people. And if you think about it, we use blurry language around time in the workplace a lot. I am regularly saying, hey, that'll just take me a minute when it's not an actual minute that I'm talking about. But when we look at those blur words, let's just do an experiment right now. Let's think about ASAP, as soon as possible. Imagine that someone on your team says to you, I will get you that file or that request as soon as possible. Go to the chat right now, and I want you to give me the honest interpretation of what you mean, what you think they mean by that. What does as soon as possible mean to you? All right, we've got today. Some people are saying now. By end of day is showing up. It's under an hour. Yes, Camilla, I get a little skeptical when I hear as soon as possible when they're free. Might be the thing. Is it that day, right? It depends on who's asking. Yes. Do you see the problem with blurry language? Look at all these dozens and dozens of interpretations of one concept. So what happens when we hear that blurry language? One of the things that I encourage leaders to do in workshops is to ask questions to de-blur that expectation, and very often to begin that question with an intention statement. That intention statement can signal to that person our expectations around that time. So say, for instance, with ASAP, I would say, oh, another team's waiting on it. When can I expect it from you? Or ASAP, great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with. When can you get that to me? Notice that intention statement can signal a level of urgency and importance that we're going to talk about later on, but also that can also help that person see that they need to be clearer. Another thing that I love about this tool of time integrity and clearing up blur language is to catch myself. This happened a few weeks ago. My manager had asked for something and he was like, when can you get it to me? And my first response to him was soon. And as soon as I pinged him with soon, I was like, hey, wait a minute, Jensen, you know, you teach this stuff. What's going on here? And I realized I was hiding from something uncomfortable. And that uncomfortable moment for me was having to say, Brendan, I actually can't get to that until Friday. Is that okay? So clearing up those blur words, watching for our own use of them. And this kind of extends into this next section, this next concept, which is about role modeling. One of the concepts that is very important for me to explore with managers in our workshop is the concept of signal setting actions. These are the things that when a manager does them, It means far more than what they say. I'll give you an example. I had a manager who once said, "I don't want you to work evenings and weekends. Please respect your dark hours." And then the same manager would send me requests at 11:30 at night. What did I do? Did I respect my dark hours, or did I answer her request? Put your guess into chat. I answered her request because she had set that signal that I needed to always be on. And one of the questions that I want you to ask yourselves as leaders is, what are the signals that you're setting for your teams? Are you starting and ending your meetings on time? Are you showing up on time and modeling the kind of punctuality that you might be expecting from others? Are you using time integrity within meetings? I'll give you a little show and tell here. I constantly in meetings have a stopwatch running, right? And when we're in discussion points, I'm hitting the lap so that I can be aware that I'm trying to maintain that focus. And even for ourselves, if we're just attending meetings, using the time language can be helpful to say things like, all right, we've already been discussing this point for 7 minutes. We've got 3 more items on the agenda. Or we only have 5 minutes left. Do we have time to parking lot those last items and talk about next steps? So using that can help address one of the biggest pain points that I hear from workers around the world, which is meetings. They're taking up so much of people's time. And I think part of the challenge is focus within those meetings and really trying to manage that time well. Now, this next tool, I have a complicated relationship with. I love it. It's also been a challenging one for me. It's a time audit. Now, many people may have used a tool like this before, especially if you're in an organization where you have billable hours. But one of the ways to do this, and I think this is a really great tool, especially when a person's newish in their role, or if they're struggling to make sure that they're able to get through all the things that are required of them, then suggest that they track their patterns for 1 week at 15-minute increments. What did they actually do? Where was the time going? But there's another layer that we can add to this. When I was checking my email at 8 a.m., did I intend to do that? Did I plan to do that? Or was I just being reactive? When I first learned this tool, it was helpful for me in 2 ways. One, I began to spot the times of day when I struggle with focus. For me, that's early in the mornings. That's about any time after 3 p.m., right? And that helped me. It also helped me to see how much of that time do I have to really plan? Do I need to be more reactive in my role? Now, one of the things that might be showing up around this too is this new lens, because so many organizations are moving into AI and it's still a new space. When I was doing this time audit, was I using the AI for assistance? Was it helpful, or was that a reactive response to the AI? Because one of the things we have to realize with a tool like AI is, are we using it to help us improve our use of time, or is this a tool that is very often distracting us or possibly losing us time? Now, the next thing to think about with this time audit is whether or not you want your teams to do it. There are a couple of ways you can do this with a team. Let's say, for instance, you and your group has a report that you have to generate once a quarter, for instance. Then what you could do is say, let's time audit how much time we take on that report. And then the next time it comes up, we know how much time it took us. Or you can ask people on your team to do a time audit like the one that you see on the screen, and then report back to you. Nobody wants to have a manager that seems to be peering over their shoulder in 15-minute increments. So be careful how you suggest this, that it's for their eyes only, that they can share patterns, that we can optimize workflow. We just did one of these last summer for our facilitation team, and it was a really helpful way for us to begin to see the patterns of how much time we needed to budget for things. Now, the takeaways around this first section is, how am I speaking about time? Am I making estimates on how long it takes to complete things and then coming back and saying, okay, how can I adjust that estimate? Am I aware of where my time is going? Or is my team aware of where that's going? Now, when the next yes, why did I see or notice the email in my dark hours? I just realized this because probably didn't believe her, right? Yes, I love all the things that are coming up around that story that were going on. All right, let's move into our next section. And I love this next section because there's one tool that's really famous, and there's one tool that is very easy to begin as a daily habit. In fact, I learned this very early when I first was exposed to the content from today's session. Every morning when I open up my laptop, because I know I have focus problems early in the morning, I will look at my calendar for the day. I will brainstorm, as I did this morning, all the things I think I'm going to get done that day. And then I'll pause and ask myself an important question. If only 3 of those things get done today, what are they going to be? At LifeLabs, we call these things your MITs. That stands for most important things, not that school in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right? So I want you to think about this for yourself. If you've written down your to-do list items for today, if it's early in your day, or for tomorrow for our folks in Europe, what are the 3 most important things that you have on your to-do list? Look at those. If they're already listed down, which 3 qualify? So take just a moment, gather your thoughts. What are those most important things? Now, as you do that, I want you to look at the number 1 item on your list, right? When you're looking at those to-do list items and you've identified something as your most important thing, why is your number 1 your number 1? Right? So everyone go to the chat and answer that question for your number 1 item. Why did it qualify as the most important? It's the most important, or it's the easiest to get out of the way? Yes, that's sometimes the question. It's the reports. It's time sensitive. It has the biggest impact. It's the most critical. It's overdue. There's a deadline. Other people are depending on it, right? The time sensitive. You can't ignore it, and it's the most important, right? What is interesting about this tool is how easily it can be both an individual prioritization tool and a team level tool. Because I will constantly talk with managers about this tool, and one of the ways that they use it is in asking their teams for the week in one-on-ones, what are your most important things that you're working on this week? In stand-up meetings where we're talking about what's on people's docket, what are the most important things? Even in meetings, if we have a lot on the agenda, to say, okay, where are the most important things that where do we really need to be focusing? One of the reasons why I love to keep this at 3 as a daily habit is that at first it will seem odd. Why am I choosing 1, 2, and 3? And then over time, I've been able to refine as a request comes through, as a last minute ping, as a last minute item on my agenda or my to-do list. Where does it fit within that hierarchy of how I'm judging importance? Now, another way of doing this is to use something that we call the quadrant method. Now, this has many names. This was popularized by Stephen R. Covey in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We're going to do an adapted version of this. This is sometimes called the Eisenhower matrix because it was developed under General Eisenhower in World War II. But one of the things that is so incredible about the quadrant method is its revolutionary way of looking at urgency versus importance. And it recognizes right away that things that may feel urgent to us are not necessarily important. And those things that are really critical and important may not have that sense of, I've got to do it right now. But sometimes we've got both. And this is what we call the quadrant 1, fire quadrant. These are the things that we have to cancel our plans. We've got to put things aside. We've got to reconfigure our days because we've got to handle this urgent issue. But what's interesting about fires is sometimes they can be chronic issues. You know the moment you're like, oh, here I am again. I got to handle that thing. I've got to cancel that next meeting. I've got to delay the thing that I thought it was going to work out because I'm putting out that fire again. And if you're in that moment, I want you to think about it. What are some chronic fires that you're regularly putting out in your roles? Make a little note of that. Now, one of the biggest learnings from the quadrant method is the difference between quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. The deception quadrant has the urgency, but when we really investigate what is behind that activity, that item that we're doing, it may not really qualify as importance in our minds or even in the back of our mind. And deceptions come, in my experience, from two different directions. There are the external deceptions, those requests coming from others. Very often I will hear from participants in this workshop that requests from senior leadership are seen as deceptions. They will drop everything they're doing, even though they feel like they maybe have more important things that they need to be dealing with. Sometimes our deceptions are coming from inside the house, so to speak. The call is from inside the house. And the call from inside the house deception is, ooh, let me check Slack. Oh, let me go to Teams. Who's gotten back to me? Did that message come through? And then suddenly I am working on something that feels that intense. I've got to grab my phone. I've got to open Slack. I've got to open Teams moments. And then suddenly we are not working on what's important. So I want you to think for quadrant 3, what is a moment of deception or a common deception that shows up for you in your role? Something that feels urgent, but behind it all, you're not sure how important it is. Just make a note of that for yourself. Now, I'm going to move quickly through this, but one of the things that also reinforces MITs as a really good daily habit for me is when I'm feeling a moment of stress and overwhelm at work and I want to quit my job and run away, right? I will look at my MIT list. And one of the things I will notice is that when I feel that level of frustration, I'm almost never working on something that I feel is really important. Right? Another critical task or question to ask yourself about the deception quadrant is this: am I the right person to be doing this? Or am I holding on to a function, a tool, a task, a repeated activity that I could be delegating to other people on my team? I love the fact that we now have a delegation workshop where we explore this concept more thoroughly. What are those moments? How can leaders better delegate for their teams? Because letting go can sometimes be a difficult thing. The third question here, I've had a lifelong struggle with perfectionism. Other perfectionists in the room, just give me a little shout out in the chat. One of the things that I have to watch for is regularly, am I in the deception quadrant of needing everything to be perfect, right? So the question that I have to ask on a regular basis is this good enough already, Jensen? Do you have to have every little last thing here? Can you move on? Because ultimately, and this is really important for people leaders, We know how critical it is that we work in areas of investment that are helping to improve the quality of work for ourselves and our teams and our organizations. But that investment quadrant, because it does not always have the fire of urgency behind it, think about this. Professional development is the reason why so many of us are here, but yet this is very often the first thing that is dropped off, that is procrastinated. That investment quadrant, in order to get to it, people have to be proactive. And I want you to think about your investment quadrant as it relates to your fires and deceptions. Is there possibly something that you could do that would prevent those chronic fires? Is there maybe something that you could do, maybe having a difficult conversation with a member of your team, or having an automation or using AI to see if you might be able to get away from a deception? I also want to point out that sometimes AI might be our deceptions, right? So what might prevent those chronic issues? How, if maybe you scheduled 30 minutes, an hour, would you be able to prevent one of those fires or deceptions? Now, when we're thinking about this, calendar blocking is critical for investment time. And I always love to talk in workshops and ask people, what are your tips and tricks for calendar blocking? And one time in a session, two VPs started laughing, and I was like, why are you laughing? And they were like, well, when we need to focus, we will set a meeting with each other in our calendar that we don't actually attend, but then people don't schedule over it. And then suddenly their secret are out, and they were like, that's what you're doing in those meetings? You're doing your calendar blocking? There might be better options than deceiving your colleagues and coworkers of where you are. Maybe it's sometimes talking about what are our norms around calendar blocking. Are there ways in which we might be able to increase more of this time? I love organizations that will have things like meeting-free Fridays or focus hours in their calendars that help people to calendar block. And when we're thinking about this, yes, Camilla's taken up that idea from those two VPs. Find the right colleague to do it, right? And then it's almost like it's what's called body doubling, right? Then you have an activity partner for that time, right? Yes, and so we then are going to now talk about quadrant number 4. Now, if you think about it, quadrant number 4 should not be important and not urgent. But in the version of the quadrants that we use at LifeLabs, we found it's really critical to think of quadrant 4 as recharge quadrant. And in this way, I see it as a subset of quadrant 2. It is not a small thing that people get chances to take breaks, to take time off, to call out sick when they're sick, to be able to have breaks during the day, to have lunches, right? And I regularly will talk with leaders who struggle around this. They want their teams to be taking breaks, but they themselves are not taking the breaks. They're not taking the time off, or they're even going on vacations and working throughout the vacation. So how am I remodeling recharge? How am I modeling recharge as a signal setting action that we talked about earlier? But also, are there ways organizationally that we can create recharge? One of the things we've been doing at LifeLabs is really looking at meetings that might not be needed, and so that people have more space within their days to do sort of an inventory for our teams. Where can we build in more time, right? I love this question. How do you build in recharge when it's a struggle for you? Put your answers into chats, right? How do you, when you're struggling with this, make sure that recharge is happening? I'd love to see some answers here. Yes, get up and walk around the block. Sleep in comfort zones, right? The swimming, scheduling catch-ups on the phone, right? Go get the mail, take the walks. Yeah, my dogs are great for this. They do not care about our other schedules, right? Leaving the electronics away, right? Spending time with the dog, turning off the notifications. Yes, the coffee breaks, the 20-minute lanes, not eating lunch at your desk. I'm trying to get better at this one. Jennifer, I'm glad you're reminding me about this. The power nap, I'm a master of the 20-minute power nap, right? All right. Now, as we wrap this up, the quadrant method is a really powerful tool to share with others, especially the vocabulary around urgency and importance. Because these are so often mistaken in workplace environments, what makes this urgent? What makes this important are critical questions for us to be asking ourselves and asking our teams. Now let's pause. I always want to point out that there's an irony in this pause button showing up in our productivity and time management workshop. Think about it. We get in efficiency only mode. We think if we're doing all the time, that means that we're being effective. But sometimes one of the most powerful things we can do, and leaders very often need to prompt us to do this, is to hit the pause button, to say, okay, what is going on here? Are we focusing on what's most important? Are we in deceptions? Are we mistaking urgency for importance? Are we aligned on what's most important? Now, this leads us to our final two categories. With organization, we have one major concept, but this carries a really important call to action for individuals and also people leaders. The concept is something that we call the CCS. Now, that might sound like something you don't know what it is, but what we're talking about with the CCS is this stands for Consistent Capture System. Now, people will have ways that they write down what action items they have to complete. They have their calendars where they have their appointments and their obligations written, and they've got their notes. Now, these can work both on individual ways. I have my individual consistent capture systems, but teams also have capture systems. Where are we capturing the to-do list items on projects? Are we using Jira, Asana, Monday, any of the Kanban inspired tools? How are we having central sources of truth, especially in dispersed workplace environments where people know where the notes are? If they are unable to attend a meeting, are they able to find out what important things were discussed in that meeting? Are we having calendar norms set up, like being able to be brain friendly around things that people are doing when they're taking time off or they're calendar blocking? One of the things to think about with this is about consistency, right? So two ways of asking this question is individually. When I looked at this individually, I began to see that there were inconsistencies in all three. And I began to change how I was working around these to make sure that I was closing loops. I was remembering the things that I needed to do, that I could find my notes very quickly. But also, what are the consistent capture systems for the major functions of individuals on your teams? Is there a chance that you might need to build in more consistency? Is there confusion around the use of those capture systems? If so, how can you as leaders clear up and set norms about how we're using our calendars, how we are signaling or tagging people for actions, how we are keeping our sources of truth? Now, I want you to think about this and go to the chat one more time. Let's go back here. Which of these three needs to be more consistent for you? Put your answer into chat. Is it your to-do lists, your calendars, or your notes? All right. But we're getting a mix of a lot of them, but a lot of to-do list items. Yeah, I used to use the sticky note, and then I realized, wait a minute, they're falling off the wall. I need to make sure that my to-do list items are all captured. My paper notebook's great for this. Ironically, my paper notebook is not a great place for my notes on meetings because I can never find them. And so I will keep my notes on a computer and using software for that, right? All right, so thinking about that consistency. Now, we are about to move into our final section. And this is a big one because focus is a challenge that's showing up for organizations internationally. In fact, The Economist recently released a study where they found that 2.2 hours a day are spent in interruptions. A day, 2.2 hours. And if we total this up, another study found that 28% of time and money is spent navigating interruptions at work. But let's add another layer to this. 48% of interruptions are self-initiated. Now, the cost of this for individuals, teams, and organizations is massive. And so one of the very important questions that leaders around the world that I've met with are asking themselves is, how can I reduce those distractions for myself and my team? How can we increase focus? I want you to call your mind back to a difficult moment in history for many people, the lockdown in 2020, when many people began working from home for the first time. And suddenly people are like, wait a minute, I'm working from home. How am I going to work from home? And they started to set up rules. If my door's closed, don't interrupt me. I'm in a meeting. If mom's got her headphones on, don't talk to her. She's focusing. What those rules were is actually, there's a name for them. The official name is implementation intentions, but that's a mouthful. We love to call them if-thens. Humans live our lives by if-then cues. If it's about time for me to go to bed, oh, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to wash my face. If it's getting up in the morning, I put on the coffee, I walk the dog, right? But we can use these if-then clues for ourselves as boundaries and habits, but also for our teams. So I want you to think for yourself about your common distractions. Is it the questions from others? Is it pings and alerts from Slack or Teams? Is it the new emails that are coming in? Is possibly AI a lack of something that is keeping you from focus? Right? So thinking about those common distractions, what you then do is set up this protocol. If something happens, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to focus on one of them. Google did this study of people contrasting individuals who checked their messages and pings throughout the day versus individuals who checked their messages at scheduled times. One of the things that was really interesting in that study was this. Those individuals who checked their messages throughout the day, they spent more time checking messages. That's not surprising. The second one was far more surprising because the people who check their messages throughout the day, as opposed to those that check them at scheduled times, answer more messages. So if you want to be better at responding to pings and messages, having scheduled moments during the day to check those is very often going to actually save you time and help improve the efficiency in answering and responding to messages. Now, that's one example. But I also love this one that's coming up with AI. If I have generated more than 3 options, then I'm going to stop generating and choose. I'm not going to continue to go down the rabbit hole. So I want you to think for yourself at this moment, what is an if-then that you might set up either for yourself or for your teams? Write yours into chat. That moment of distraction, what is something that can help you maintain focus at that moment? I'd love to hear some examples. What are your if-thens? These take a little longer to write, so I'm waiting for the chat responses to come. It's gonna be a flood of text in just a moment. All right, if I don't finish it today, it's the first thing tomorrow. We're going to clarify urgency, schedule reply. Yeah, all right. If I peek in chat and mark it as unread to return to later, if I have the red light turned on Teams, don't send me a message. Thank you, Matthew. This is a team level tool. Very often when it comes to Slack and Teams, people have to set these norms as agreed upon standards, right? And I love that example that you're sharing there, Matthew, right? If I'm in focus block, I'll close my email completely. If my time timer is going for my focus, I will not open Slack. Absolutely, right? If I get to jump on a call, then I will clarify what's needed first. I love this, Karina, so that I'm really clear on the urgency and importance of that, right? If I'm deep in a project, I won't check Slack messages. Loving the do not disturb. If someone asks me to do something, then I'll pause before I immediately jump to say yes. So sometimes it's just an if then of inserting that moment of pause and reflection, right? If I get a question from a manager to help with an employee, then I'll ask her or him, did they have their initial conversation with the employee before coming to HR? Yes, thank you, Patricia, right. I can see that some thought has gone into a lot of these for folks. If an employee needs my help, right, did I make sure that they close the issue, not just in my direction, but having to own the issue? Yes, thank you, Debbie. All right, I'm going to put on my headphones when I'm doing do not disturb. I love it. All right. Now, everyone, I want us to begin to wrap up our time together, and we might have the rarest of all things, a little bit of extra time for some questions if you've put any in the Q&A. But the key takeaways from this final section is around how are we losing focus? Are there habits and boundaries that we can practice as individuals or for our teams that can make it easier for us to avoid that costly problems of interruptions, right? So if you've got any questions, let's go to the chat for a moment and look at some Q&As that are coming up. And Courtney is in the background helping me out here. Is it appropriate to reiterate, as an employee, it's appropriate to reiterate that she said, respect your dark hours? Absolutely. This notion of how is it that if we are a person who is, say, for instance, sending out requests late at night because possibly we're in a time zone that is different from others, or that's when our brains best work and you do your focus time at night. If that is important to us, then saying to others, hey, you might get requests from me. I want to make sure that you answer them in the time that's allotted, or you can do an if then for those dark hour requests. If something needs to be responded to immediately, can we put a signal that it needs an immediate response, or this has a different time response on it? Let's look to see if there's any other questions that are showing up. Yeah, do you have any wisdom related to opening conversations around chronemics specifically? I love this question, Tani. It's interesting because I think one of the things to do is to start conversations around struggles about time and prioritization with sharing our own challenges. I believe, and I actually have some evidence to back this up because I've given this workshop to every imaginable position within organizations, and I've never met anyone who does not struggle around time management and prioritization. But I've also never met anyone who doesn't feel some shame about it, right? And so when we're initiating these conversations, sometimes it's to say, hey, I've struggled with the chronemics, or I've struggled with my own time awareness, and share about that. What are some things that are coming up for you about this? I don't know if that was helpful, Tani, but I really appreciate the question. All right, let's see. Are there any other questions? Let me look to chat to see if there's any other questions that are coming up. All right, everyone. We are now getting toward our final moments. And this is there's a couple of call to actions I'm going to give you right now. I want you to look over what we have covered in today's session. When you are looking at these different tools, I would like you to prioritize one of these tools to experiment with in the upcoming week. Go to the chat. Which one of the tools are you going to use this week? Let's see what's coming up. I'll show you the list again as you're answering this. All right, getting to the MITs, the most important things, and really asking why. Yeah, using the deblurring the language around time, MITs, doing those if-thens, love that, L. Right, to doing a time audit, Perva, great, good luck with that. MIT method, Samantha, that's great. Doing the time audit, yes. CCS, Asha. I love when I have familiar names. Hey, Asha, that I've had in workshops before. Good to have you here. Anyone else, a tool that you're going to prioritize this week? All right, so time audit coming up. Now, I want to begin to close out today's session. I love that Culture Club is here. I love what this community represents. I love that you have all taken out this investment of your time and energy to be here today. I would love it if you could give me some feedback on today's session. What are some things that worked? What are ways that we could improve these events? Please share those with us. But also another thing that I want you to think about is, are there concerns or questions that you've got around topics around time management and productivity for your team, or other challenges that you're facing that maybe one of our consultants could help you out with? We have a team of remarkable consultants. And even if it's just to sit in a room with them for 30 minutes, to schedule some time to talk about some challenges that you're facing, hopefully we at LifeLabs can help you out. But that time with those consultants is going to be worthwhile no matter what comes up. So I encourage you to do that. Now, I can't believe my chronemics today. I was so worried about being behind time that I've got 2 minutes left. Let's see, does anybody have a last minute question? You can put it into chat if you've got one. Any last minute question for me before we begin to close this thing out? Or more than one. Put your question into chat or in the Q&A, whichever's working best. What is my favorite color? It kind of vacillates. I think I'm moving into green right now. I just put up some peel and stick wallpaper for the first time, moving into green. Oh, thank you for those folks that are saying this works really well. Yes, Patricia, reach out for questions about this with our consultants. We can talk about possibly scheduling some time with folks. All right. Yes, slide share. The key slides are going to be available, right? They are available. The recording of this, if you want to share it, look for the recording, because then other people on your teams can view it, or you can review sections that I move through pretty quickly. All right, everyone. I want to sort of close this out with some motivation. When we are looking at this issue, it's especially important for us as people leaders and human resource professionals. We want our work to be productive. We also want people to be engaged. Gallup just released their State of the Workforce report around engagement in 2025, and for the second year in a row, engagement has gone down. And for managers, this is particularly challenging. So during these times where you are trying to find ways of supporting your teams, of helping them to focus on those things that help them to see their work matter more, we appreciate your investment, the very important work that you're doing, and we would love to help you out in whatever way we can. So glad to be here with you. So grateful for this community. And I want to thank you all for being here today. I still have 35 seconds. And this has never happened. Courtney's behind the scenes knows that this is also true. We generally go too slow, but everyone, I'm killing time. Great to meet you all. Have a wonderful day, everyone.